In the previous lecture, you have learned the basics of functions. Now it's time to practice how to create a function. To code along with me, first download the course folder from the link in the description below and open it with your favorite code editor. Here I'm using Visual Studio Code. From the course folder, open the exercise folder called JavaScript Functions. And then open the index.html file using Google Chrome. Here I also open the JavaScript console. In the index.html file, remember to link lograndom.js file. In lograndom.js file, there's already a single line of code. You have seen this code before in one of the previous lectures of JavaScript numbers. This code creates a random number from 1 to 10 and stores it in a variable named randNumber. Functions are just about everywhere in JavaScript. In fact, we have used lots of functions so far. For example, notice the parentheses after the math.floor and math.random. Math.floor and math.random are also functions. They are functions that are built into the JavaScript language. You can also create your own functions to perform just about any task you want. In this case, let's create a function that displays a random number in the console each time it's called. First, create a function named lograndom with function lograndom followed by a set of parentheses and a set of curly braces. Here I'm writing the function at the top of my lograndom.js file. It's a common practice for programmers to place the functions at the top of the file. Remember, the code in the function does not run immediately. JavaScript creates a space in memory to save the function definition and assign it to the name lograndom. This is similar to your pizza delivery, remembering the instructions about your order. I want to create a new random number each time I call this function. So next, I'll move the random number generating codes into the function. Lastly, I'll display the random number in the console. And look, more parentheses, which means that console.log is also a function. So now I have a small collection of codes that does something. I'll save the change and refresh the page. Notice that nothing happens yet, but something did happen behind the scenes. The browser read the function into memory and it's now ready to do something on its instructions as soon as it's called. The codes inside function runs only if you call the function. So in my JavaScript file, I'll call the lograndom function just below the function definition like this. I'll save the change, refresh the page. A random number displays in the console. What's great about function is that you can use it over and over again. To run a function, you can just call it. For example, I'll call lograndom function 3 more times. I'll save the change, refresh the page. 4 random numbers display in the console. So just one short line of code where I call the function, tell the browser to run multiple lines of code. Now imagine that you have a function with 50 lines of codes. Calling that function using a single short command, you'll run 50 lines of codes. And that is the power of functions. As you have learned, they let you run 2, 10, a dozen, or hundreds of lines of codes by typing a single line of code. You'll use them constantly in JavaScript to make your programs more modular and easier to update. Functions also affect the flow of your programs. For example, the JavaScript programs you have written so far start at the top of a file and run line by line to the end of the file. You learned in the previous lecture that conditional statements can also affect the flow of the program by doing different things based on different conditions. But even then, the program still runs from the top to the bottom of the file. Functions, however, break that top to bottom flow. For example, if you look at how the lograndom function operates, you'll see that the JavaScript engine constantly jumps around. Each time you call the function, the JavaScript engine jumps into the function, runs the function's code, then returns to the spot in the program where the function was called. In fact, in this code, there are also built-in JavaScript functions at work, such as math.floor, math.random, and console.log. So when each of these are called, the JavaScript engine has to jump into them and execute their code, then return to the spot it left off within the lograndom function. You'll often need to perform a similar action in many places in your program. As you become a more advanced programmer, you'll write lots of functions to efficiently run code that you want to repeat again and again without having to take the same code multiple times. Up next, we'll dive deeper into how to write and use functions.